morning, everyone. Thank you for being on time. We are now starting the second day of the workshop on the mission Caring for Soil is Caring for Life. As you've probably understood, we are right on time. It's 9 o'clock Central European time, 8 o'clock in Portugal, 10 o'clock in Estonia, and we hope you are feeling well. Some of the participants are still arriving, so we are going to start slowly. Our desire for starting is actually to energize a little bit. So to bring you all to talk in little groups to begin with, telling each other how was for you the day of yesterday, what did you particularly like, what are you expecting for today. So after this, we will make another small breakout room when more people are here, when we have another exercise. So for now, we would invite you to go into small rooms of 5 people, have a little chat, hello, greet, relax a little bit, get to know each other. You have around 7 minutes, okay? So good morning, everyone, and see you back in 7 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice, relaxing time, meeting each other, talking about yourselves, your days, yesterday, today. So now it's time for us to get on with our workshop. Before we go on, we wanted to do a second round. Now, focusing on the soil that you picked up yesterday. So I hope you were all able to pick some soil. So I picked some soil. Here is the photo of, well, this is the worst soil I have in my land. As you see, it's very clayish, very low on organic matter. And this is the soil I have in my warm place. It's full of worms. Now they hid because they don't like the light. And what I would like you maybe to talk a little bit between yourselves, or I would invite you, is to share a little bit the story of your soil and what were your thoughts when you were picking it up, reflecting on how could we mainstream and replicate the good parts of the soil and improve the bad ones. What happened? What's the reason why you have good soils or bad soils? Is it because is it a valley? Is it because it is a geological reason? Is it because the people working before you in the land or you yourself in the previous years have done a good work or a bad work? So can you be grateful for the soil that you have now? And how do you see it possible to improve and make it better in the future? So this is an invitation for you to share a little bit of your personal story with your peers, have some fun, reflect a little bit on the challenges of improving the soil. And this is going to be the whole content of our workshop of the day, not so detailed and not so concrete, but it should be as much as possible grounded in the reality and the challenges of improving and adding organic matter to large quantities of soil, which is one of the big challenges of farmers. So thank you for being here again. And I pass you on again to your next breakout session of 7 minutes focused on the soil. After this, please, when we come back all together, we are going to take a picture with all our soils. Okay? So feel free to show it to your peers now in your breakout session. Have a nice time. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being back. I hope you had a nice conversation. So before we start with the program of our day, I would like now to invite you to show your soils on the camera so that our communication can take a picture and we can have a small representation. I just talked with Arwin. He's showing his camera where he has several soils from Europe. He has had samples of 26,000 soils from Europe. So the diversity is huge. And here we already have a lot of diversity. So it's very beautiful to see you so close to the soil. Thank you very much for doing this. Okay, very beautiful. Thank you. So we are now, I hope, ready to start the program of the day. I'm going to present you the program of the day, and I would like Ina to put on our PowerPoint showing the program for today. So you already know that we are going to be talking about the soil mission. Now, what are we going to be looking at today? So yesterday we looked at the overall mission in the morning. We had the presentation from Professor Bridget Emmett, and in the afternoon we had Alfred Grant presenting us the research and innovation needs, one of the main strategies for the soil mission. And today we have the living labs and the lighthouse farms in the morning, and in the afternoon the topic is about the supportive environment. So in the morning what we will have is a presentation now from Alfred Grant, followed by questions and answers. We will have the opportunity to watch the video of his farm, a short video. We will also watch other videos during the break. And after that, we will have three very interesting people telling us their stories on living labs and lighthouses. So they're really, really interesting people that we're going to meet today. And after this, we're going to have another session of questions and answers. So during the presentations, you're already invited to start asking some of the questions in the chat already from Alfred, and afterwards during the three presenters that we'll have. And after these four presentations, what we're going to have is again a session of breakout. We're going to use Padlet again, and we're going to reflect on the living labs. Okay, so the idea basically is to reflect first, how would you see living labs from your personal perspective? Would you be interested to be one living lab or one lighthouse? Either you are a farmer, or if you are a researcher or an institution or advisor, to contribute in other ways to that living lab or lighthouse. And the second basic question is, how could living labs and lighthouses be most effective and more effective to achieve the mission's objectives? So this is going to be our morning for today. So thank you all very much for being here, giving your time to contribute to this mission that we hope in the end of these 2 days will also be your mission. So now, without more words, I would like to invite Alfred Grant again to present what's happening with the living labs and lighthouses on the soil mission. You already know that Alfred is the organic farmer for Vermigran. He's the representative from the mission. You already met him. You already know he's a great spokesperson. So let's hear from Alfred again.
Hello. Welcome to the session on living labs and lighthouses. I will share my screen with you. So let's talk about living labs and lighthouses, one of my favorite topics. My name is Alfred Grant. I'm an organic farmer and entrepreneur from Austria. I'm a mission board member on the mission Soil Health and Food, and I'm also an ambassador for EIP-AGRI. So now we have 4 different building blocks at the mission, and now we are talking about building block number 2, co-creation of knowledge and testing of solutions in living laboratories and lighthouses. So what are living labs? What are lighthouses? Let's start with the living labs, or also called living laboratories. These are spaces for co-innovation through participatory, transdisciplinary, and systematic research. So committed landowners, highly committed landowners will be invited to set up living labs together with the scientific community, together with researchers. And the idea is to co-create, to co-innovate research and to also include consumers to work together with all of these stakeholders to develop solutions and identify gaps on a very practical level. Focus will be, for example, according to the Green Deal and farm to fork strategy, also organic methods and, for example, also agroecological methods. These living labs, these living laboratories, they will co-design and co-construction of innovative practices beyond current understanding, with inputs from citizens, practitioners like farmers, foresters, landscape managers, but also from advisory services, biophysical and social scientists, so even transdisciplinary research, data scientists, technologists, planners, policymakers. So it will be a multi-stakeholder approach put together in these living laboratories. There will be experimental and research and innovation activities. So moving beyond the current management, like you see on the picture on the right side, so-called roller crimper method and no-till method for organic farms. There has to be a robust scientific approach. So ideas from practice, for example, will be evaluated by the scientific community. And there should be a wide range of outreach activities to farmers, to practitioners, but also to citizens. What are lighthouses and what is the difference from lighthouse to living labs? Lighthouses are places for demonstration of solutions, training and communication. So while living labs focus more on the research side, lighthouses focus more on the demonstration. So in the area of agriculture, for instance, lighthouses will showcase practices that are exemplary in terms of providing sustainable produced healthy food, feed or fiber, as well as ecosystem services, while linking rural and urban communities. So they will bring together land managers with citizens, for example. So within the lighthouses, a demonstration of best management practices will be shown. Research activities focused around improving current management practices, so not so much on new, but focusing more on already established management practices. But the focus is more on the active outreach and engagement activities, and also several programs on that. So what are the numbers? The ambition is to establish in the first years of the mission at least 5, preferable 10 living labs and or lighthouses in each of the regions within Europe. So that will result in 1,000 to 2,000 living labs and lighthouses, which are working as incubators and demonstrators of change. So there should be regional clusters of 10 to 15 of these institutions, and will be grouped on different topics or different regional activities also. So one of these lighthouse farms, just as an example, could be our own farm, which is a research and demonstration farm, which was established or developed in 2019. We have an organic arable field farm. We're focusing but also on agroforestry and market gardening. It's about 90 hectares. You can see more information on the website. We have prepared a short video for you that we can start now.
Hello and welcome. My name is Alfred Grant. I am an organic farmer and entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, we are producing organic fertilizer with the help of earthworms. As a farmer, together with my family and a young motivated team, we have a research and demonstration farm. We are based in Absdorf in Austria, in the heart of Europe. Our main topics on the farm are soil health, which is the foundation for every farmer, agroforestry, which is bringing back trees and bushes on arable land, and market gardening. Market gardening is really a very special system. It's traditional, but yet extremely innovative. It produces high-quality organic vegetables, fruits and herbs on small land, not so much with technology, but more with people. It is the best example for a systemic approach to the societal challenges that we are facing today. It has the potential to mitigate climate change, to adapt to climate change, it regenerates your soil, and it produces healthy food at the same time. It creates jobs for young people in rural areas and has a high value to the local economy. We are doing research together with national and international research institutes on market gardening, because we think this is the way to go. Our vision is to establish a market garden in every larger village within Europe till 2035.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. So you get a little bit of impression what we are doing. So as explained, we are focusing on 3 different topics. Soil health is number 1, as you can see with the roller crimper method that we are doing trials and research on our farm, also with an EIP-AGRI operational group, and already the second EIP-AGRI operational group is working on that roller crimper method. We are also doing research in agroforestry. Another operational group started right now conducting agroforestry in Austria. And we are doing research in market gardening, organic vegetable on small scale, small land, 1 hectare or less, and everything is done by hand. So we are focusing also on the cooperation with research institutions, like you see on the bottom. We're working with FIBEL, we're working with the University of Wageningen, Bioforschung Austria, an Austrian organization, but we're also part of the global network of lighthouse farms, which was established by the University of Wageningen. We are cooperating with the Rodel Institute in Pennsylvania, USA. As I already mentioned, I'm active also in EIP-AGRI, and we're working with the local university here in Austria, BOKU, and also with the European Commission. So one part of our research at the moment is that we have a master student from the University of Wageningen on our farm, and he is conducting research with the title Project Framework, Living Labs and Lighthouses for Farmland Use. So as a research farm, as a lighthouse, we are, and as a living lab, we are already working on that topic also. Howard Costa, who is also part of the EIP-AGRI workshop, he's participating. He's a master student at the University of Wageningen, and he's conducting 5 months internship on our farm. 50% is on-farm training, and the other 50% research is the research project itself. So what do you think? Are lighthouses and living labs, can they contribute to the mission? And could you imagine to be part of that adventure? Thank you for your interest.
So thank you very much, Alfred, for the presentation. Now it's time to welcome Pandi Zdruli. For those of you that were not here yesterday, Pandi is our coordinating expert of EIP for this event. He is also professor of soil science and natural resource management at the Mediterranean Agronomic Institute in Bari, Italy. Welcome, Pandi. So Pandi is going to be reading through the questions that you are writing now on the chat and supporting us and asking the questions to Alfred. So Pandi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think we had a wonderful presentation from Alfred showing in a real-time story how he's doing this in his own farm. Now let's go with the questions. There is a question here that deals with the residues that could be into coming from pesticides, heavy metals, mycotoxins. Uh, Now, we're talking for organic farming, and there is full support for that. But how about if there is another situation when you might have also this type of residues in the products, and people would like to know how to deal with that?
Yeah, I think in organic farming are the same rules active for food production than we have it in conventional farming. So I don't think there is less analytics running on organic food in regard to pesticide residue or contamination. So I think there is no difference because food is food, and it underlies the same regulation in safety.
Okay. Someone is asking also about what do you mean by regions? You said that you want to have lighthouse and living labs spread in all EU regions. How are identified the EU regions?
There is an official definition about the EU region. So in each of the member states, there are several regions. There is a definition for that, but I don't have that in mind. And so in general, there are, if we think about 1,000 to 2,000 different lighthouse farms, and it's 5 or 10 by region. So you could divide and see how many regions there are in Europe. But there is a definition for that.
Okay, so it's well defined also, I assume, also in the report of the mission. So.
Yeah, there's an official definition for the regions in Europe.
Okay. Someone is asking, is there any financial support to create and maintain a living lab, or maybe also a lighthouse?
Yeah, I hope so. And this is the work that we are conducting to do, is to find the framework for these living labs, because in our proposal for the mission that we handed over to the European Commission, the members of the mission board handed over to the Commission at the Research and Innovation Days at the end of September. It was only a rough description, but we have to work out the definition and the framework for these living labs and lighthouses in the near future. And that is what our master student is helping us also to do that. And I hope there will be incentives to generate such living labs. I hope there will be support to do that, to create such living labs, such lighthouses. In our case, what we had from, and we are part of that a network of lighthouse farms, global lighthouse farms, there was no financial support. So what we did till now was just voluntary and privately financed by myself.
Excellent. That's a very good answer. There are also other questions that are coming in. For example, can the living labs and the lighthouses could contribute also to shape the monitoring and surveillance programs for soil monitoring, I assume, and soil quality?
Yeah, I hope so. One of the main thing that we want to see is that the cooperation between practice and science, and what the specific project these are, it is completely open, and the more cooperation we have, the better, I think.
Yes, very good. Well, again, how to ensure that additional farmers could join the living labs? Is this based, let's say, on a voluntary basis, that people would like to become like that? How the process goes if someone owns a farm and said, "Oh, I like the idea. This is very good. I want to be one." How the process works?
Yeah, huge interest is there. We see that in Austria. We talk to the Chamber of Agriculture, and we see huge interest from farmers to be a living lab or to be a lighthouse. So this is fantastic to see, and we hope that we will soon have the framework that defines how such living labs are created, what support comes to the living labs, to the lighthouses, but that the details have to be worked out. But as you already mentioned yesterday from the survey, a huge amount of farmers who are involved in operational groups are willing to proceed and to go on with research and cooperation with researchers. So this is really good news.
Excellent. I'm very glad to see that there are additional questions coming in. For example, I see one. It says, do you think that living labs could be in certain cases a kind of social innovation centers developing best practices for the involvement of local community? So emerging in that case also the social aspects of a living lab and a lighthouse, rather than strictly looking at the production.
Yeah, I would love to see broad involvement in topics. So not only talking about soil health specifically, but also talking about other issues, other challenges that we face. And this is the reason why the mission board for soil, the members of the mission board for soil health and food also said, we are like the mother of the missions. We are connected to the mission climate change. We are connected to the mission healthy oceans, even to smart cities, because we are producing the food for them, and even to cancer, to health issues. So I hope these lighthouses and living labs are not only working on soil. So as we are, for example, in our example, we are working on soil health, but we're also working on agroforestry. We're also working on market gardening. And I hope others will join us to have a more systemic approach and the new approach that we are proposing as a mission board member, or as mission board for soil health and food also.
Okay, thank you, Alfred. Well, there is someone also asking, you are also an organic farmer, so do you think that consumers would be willing to pay maybe at a higher price for an organic product rather than going to a cheaper one coming from the conventional type of production?
I think one of the activities that we should do in lighthouses, where we do demonstration on a citizen, on a consumer level, is to raise awareness for the value of food and for the production methods that we have. So I think it's super important to raise awareness that food has a strong value, has a high value, and that doesn't necessarily mean that organic, I don't want to split the value of organic food to conventional food. I think food has a value, and it's sold under the price. It's sold at the price that doesn't represent the value of food, and we have to raise awareness in that. And lighthouses should demonstrate and should help to raise awareness for the value of food, but also for the value of soil.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alfred. Thank you very much, Pandi. I think we are more or less on time for this finishing the question and answer session. Pandi, is that okay? Or do you have any final question that is still very important to say?
No, it's all, I think we covered it quite well, all the questions that were made. I will invite people also to look at the chat that I was also reading the question there, because additional information is coming out about how are defined the regions in the mission report, about a new project that could be very interesting, Nutri2Cycle, and there is the website there. So I invite people also to search on what is coming on the chat.
And we can answer questions later on also per email.
Of course.
Okay, so thank you very much, Alfred and Pandi. I would now invite everybody to turn on your microphone, and we could all together give a clap of hands for the great work that Alfred did. Huh? Just like in presidential workshops. Good.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
Well deserved. So before we go in, I would like to tell you, before we go into the next session, I would like to tell you that I found the Aladdin's lamp. And I think I have been granted the possibility of 3 wishes until 2030 for living labs. So I would like to ask you now, I would like to ask 3 people from the participants, from you, to tell us one wish that you have for 2030. So you can just unmute and say a wish for living labs or any part of the mission for until 2030. Then we have until 2030 to see if it will be made real or not. I think it will. Please take the opportunity.
Erosion.
Anna,
Stop erosion.
stop erosion. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Increasing conservation agriculture.
Increasing conservation agriculture. Thank you, Anna, as well. Not Anna. Another dream.
Involving local communities.
Involving?
Local communities.
Involving local communities. Thank you very much, Eduardo. So we have 3 dreams. Sorry, it was only 3. I'm sorry. We have involving local communities. We have increasing conservation agriculture, and we have stopping erosion. So let's see if we can all together make it happen until 2030. Huh? Thank you very much. So this is now the moment for us to meet 3 interesting people. What's going to happen now is we're going to see 3 presentations of about 5 minutes. The first one is from Herman Schurlemmer. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it well. Herman is a research manager at the Wageningen University, and he's been working in many different projects. One of them is the AgriLink project, in which they are developing new forms of advisory services for living labs, for 6 living labs in Europe. Also in the project Nefertiti, he works as a work package leader, fostering learning, reflection, and monitoring to improve the impact of demonstration farms. So Herman is surely a person that knows a lot about the topic, and is going to present us a little bit more of concrete examples of living labs. So let's hear from Herman. Thank you, Herman.
Hello. My presentation is about the European project AgriLink. My name is Herman Schoorlemmer. I'm working for Wageningen University and Research from the Netherlands. And in this project AgriLink, we have 6 living labs. And in these labs, we develop innovation support services, and we do that together with farmers, with advisors, with researchers. 2 of these labs, the one in Norway and one in the Netherlands, they are focused on topics related to soil. And I like to present them shortly, and together with some tips and tricks and do's and don'ts that we have learned in our project. So first I start with the Dutch Living Lab. In this Living Lab, we work together, and this lab has resulted in what we call a nitrate tour, focused on the awareness of farmers on their own influence on nitrate leaching. And we developed a decision support for catch crops. Finally, with the ambition to have impact on more sustainable maize cultivation in the Netherlands. In fact, we are dealing with a complex challenge with public goals and private goals. So we have to find solutions to meet them. We work together in this lab with farmers, with advisors, with contractors and researchers. And let's say especially these contract workers, we have to think about the maize production in the Netherlands is mainly on dairy farms. And a majority of the field work is done by contract workers, so it's necessary to involve them in the living lab. The lab resulted in what I call a nitrate tour. In this tour, farmers measure nitrate in the fields or in the water, and that's followed by discussion with a wider group. So it's focused on improving the awareness about the situation. The decision support for catch crops in this situation, we organized a number of co-creation sessions with a range of stakeholders, and we realized, we saw that let's say many of the stakeholders have a similar interest. There is a common ground for development, but at the end, some of the stakeholders developed their own tool that had to deal with competition between advisors, between contract workers. So they want to have their own tool that also was easily linked up to their own workflow. The second lab is in Norway, and that lab is about crop rotation. And the result of this living lab was that this crop rotation is now on the advisory agenda, with our ambition that it would be part of new advisory services. And besides that, there is an approach developed for cooperation between farmers on this topic. And finally, with the ambition that it will result in an improved environment and increased value for farmers. So in this living lab, we work together with the Norwegian advisory organization, advisors, farmers, researchers. And we organized their 3 pilots with arable farmers and with dairy farmers. And the result of this lab is are a number of manuals, reports, for example, on crop rotation, and also one on the development of an advisory service, including drafts for contracts between farmers and advisors. So we learned a lot in these living labs, and not only in these 2, but also in the 4 other ones. And based on that, I have some do's and don'ts for living labs. Let's say, first of all, it's important to be realistic about the living lab. And so this living lab approach, it's quite hot, but be realistic, and it's not a solution for all problems. An important do is to spend serious time on motives and positions of stakeholders. You want to engage stakeholders, you want to engage farmers, so take them serious and spend time on their motives. We realized that there is often another problem behind the first problem, so it's good to dig into it. Related to that, it's important not to start with a predefined solution. In all our 6 labs, we had to adapt to the situation. We had to change our plans. It's important to be open, to be flexible. And in fact, the main reason is that if you want to co-create and work together with others, then you have to keep in mind that that will influence your solution, and it will influence the result of it. It's also important that your financer understand this. So you cannot start with a blueprint. Or yeah, you could start with a blueprint for an approach, but you have to keep in mind that sometimes you have to make 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or vice versa. Okay, I will not discuss them all. Of course, this one, it's important to have good facilitation skills, and also this last one, don't use confusing or abstract language. Just an example, the word living lab. If you invite farmers to join a living lab, not all of them are enthusiastic about it, because we heard that some of them got an association with being a rabbit or a guinea pig to be in a living lab. So it's better to ask them, do you want to join us to solve a problem, and at least to solve one of your problems? Okay, then I come to my last slide. our lessons and experience we have put together, and based on that we worked out an online course. We do that together with the Open University, and this online course will be ready spring next year. So if you are interested, you're happy to join this course. Okay, this is about my presentation, and I like to stop now. And if you have questions, I like to hear about it.
Thank you very much, Herman. All we're going to do is that we're going to wait for the 3 presentations, and people can ask questions during the chat, but we will only see the questions and answer the questions together in the end. Okay, so for those of you that have just arrived, some participants were arriving, we are now looking at specific examples in more detail of living labs and lighthouses. So the next person that is going to present is Yannick Schoenhoven, as you're already seeing on the screen. She's working on the Regeneration Academy in Spain. She's living and working with her husband in Spain in a 1,100 hectare farm, very famous farm, working with together with Common Land and Alvalel. I think this is also relevant because it connects us a little bit with the supportive environment. Not everything has to be done through public investment and public support. So there's also big investors out there together, for example, with the Common Land, supporting this research and innovation farms. And I think this concept of Regeneration Academy is also based on an assumption that there's still a lot of knowledge to be shared out there. We saw yesterday from the chat questions, there are people asking, how can you do agriculture without no-till? So there's a lot of specific questions that we can learn from each other. So let's hear from Yannick, her experience, and what does she have to say about living labs and lighthouses. Thank you, Yannick, for being here today.
Hi everyone, my name is Yannick Schoenhoven and I live on La Junquera farm in southern Spain, Murcia, together with my husband and our baby and many more people. Today I'll tell you a bit more about what we're doing there, how we live, and what it is like to be a lighthouse farm. So our area is an area of a lot of extremes. So we have very cold winters, very hot summers, very little rain, but when it rains a lot. So we live on a very high altitude, 1,100 meters, and we have around 300 liters of rain a year, which is very little. So it's very difficult for plants to survive. So we've chosen to make the transition to regenerative organic agriculture a while ago. Some 8 years ago, my husband started with that, and now we're very busy experimenting and also helping others to make this transition as well. We work through the mission and vision of Common Land. This is an organization that works on big landscape restoration projects all over the world. And basically, we believe, like them, that it's very important to not only transform nature, you also have to transform people. Because if you don't do that, they will not take care of the landscape. So we are very busy on returning inspiration, returning social capital, bringing back jobs, and also making it financially sustainable. On La Junquera, we have 3 main teams. So regenerative farming, of course, is one. Then we have our projects, which are our education projects, in which the Regeneration Academy is part of it, the ecosystem restoration camps. We have hosted a regeneration festival. So, and that all happens in and around the village. And a village is also the place where we process our food, where we now have a bodega, a winery, which is really amazing. So about the regenerative farming. So we do regenerative farming on all our land, but that doesn't mean it's all the same everywhere. So, for example, in our natural zone, we are doing reforestations. In our grains, we're working with compost and mulching. In our almonds, we're leaving vegetation strips. In our pistachios as well. In our aromatics, we also plant them between the grains and between the almonds. And the sheep rotate around the farm. So there's many different ways of doing regenerative farming, and we're doing a lot of experiments on it. One of the projects on the farm is the Regeneration Academy, in which I'm very involved. With the Regeneration Academy, we use education as a tool to regenerate land. So what we're really busy with through our 4 programs is to get more knowledge on how this transition to regenerative agriculture works, and to help students and entrepreneurs understand this as well, while also changing our farm and other farms in the meantime. So, for example, in the last years that we had so many students, we've already seen a lot of changes. Just because with more minds and more hands, we can do a lot more, a lot faster. This is also where the Lighthouse farm comes in, farm network comes in. So within the Lighthouse farm network, there's a lot more students coming. We have even more knowledge. We can share the knowledge also with other farmers, which is really interesting. And this all has to do with being a hub. So in the southern Spain, we're really becoming a hub and an example for other farmers. Of course, now with the corona, it's been a bit difficult because we're not allowed to have students over. But still, we're in very close contact with the other Lighthouse farmers. We also have a meeting online with them in a month, and it's very nice to be able to also learn from other people and know that there's other people that have similar obstacles, similar challenges to what they're doing. And also sometimes a farmer in England can tell me, hey, did you hear about this soil analysis test? And sharing this knowledge is really helpful. So besides being a Lighthouse farm, we work together with many organizations. We work together closely with Patagonia, who also made a video of this farm and what we're doing. We work very closely with the Rock Group, who is a sustainability consulting company. We do a project with Climate Kick, with eTomato. We work very closely also with Wageningen and the Copernicus Institute. So through also as being a Lighthouse farm and as being part of this network, we can make our network even bigger, which means we can learn a lot more. So this is us on the first meeting of the Lighthouse farmers. Unfortunately, after that, the last meeting got cancelled. So now the next one we're doing is going to be online. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or anyone in my team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Yannick, for this very interesting presentation. I'm sure a lot of people would like now to visit your farm. So there are still some participants arriving. So for those of you that have just arrived, you can ask questions in the chat now about the next presentation. We'll have the questions and answer afterwards. And also, you can ask questions about the previous presentation. So we just heard Yannick with a living lab in Spain, a 1,100 farm. And we heard Herman Schurlemmer from the Wageningen University talking about their experiences with 6 living labs, reflecting on what are the good ways to take them forward. So now we're going to have a presentation from Dr. John Gilliland. He's working in a company called Devonish that works on livestock nutrition. and in this company, John is the director of global agriculture and sustainability. And this company has been identified, selected as one of the 11 international lighthouse farms from Wageningen University. So for being a lighthouse and for doing a work that is connected with delivering carbon neutral beef and carbon neutral lamb production by 2025. So having this sustainable management, this farm has been selected and highlighted. So thank you very much, John, for being here today. Let's hear from your presentation and so we can learn more about lighthouses.
Thank you for the opportunity for us to share our experience of being the Irish Lighthouse Farm. I want to welcome you to the Devonish Lands of Douth. Devonish Lands of Douth is a 185-hectare grassland farm based in County Meath in the Republic of Ireland. We bought it in 2013, and we bought it with the aim to actually see, could we physically make a positive difference to the outlook of beef and lamb production, and could we achieve and create a system that would deliver carbon neutral beef and lamb by 2025 while still remaining a profitable farm. And on our journey, we've done many things, and just to give you a hint of that, on the farm, one of the first things we did is we delivered a soil improvement program, looking at improving the soil fertility and the soil health. We then went on to measure our carbon sequestration, both above the ground in our trees and hedges and below the ground in our soils. Having done that, we then looked at the whole issue of water quality and the potential runoff of both soil and nutrients off our land and how we could stop that. But within our farm, we've got extraordinary biodiversity created by our woodlands, our hedges, but also we are privileged to host Ireland's top mammal, a herd of wild red deer, and trying to find where is the balance between carbon sequestration in trees vis-a-vis what deer can do when you have too big a population. And if that wasn't a challenge enough, we also farm, the whole farm is situated within a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Brúna Bóinne, where we have 6,000 years of farming evolution within our own farm. We're very privileged to be a member of the global network of lighthouse farms, and it's been an extraordinary journey. And I want to share some of that today. The first thing we did is we actually decided we were going to create some robust baselines, because if you're going to create positive change, you actually need to record where you start, and then you need to go back and repeat that on a regular basis to see your progress. So to give you an idea of some of our baselines, in 2014, we went out and we measured our simple matrix, our soil pH, our soil phosphate, our soil potash. And what we found is the previous owner over 40 years had completely neglected the farm, and that reflected in very poor fertility. In 2017, we went beyond that, and we actually did a comprehensive sampling of our soils to 30 centimeters to measure our soil carbon. And again, we were surprised when we went looking, we found things we weren't expecting. In our brown earth mineral soil, which ours is, and it's been under grassland for 40 years or more, our soil carbon was very poor at 2.1%, against a mean in our area of between 4 and 5%. And it really begged the question, what was going on our farm that left soil carbon levels so low? And that has been part of our journey to investigate what has been going on. Having achieved looking at soils, we tied up in 2014 with Teagasc, the Irish government's Agricultural Advisory and Research Service. And we actually did a LiDAR survey of our landscape. And that LiDAR data we then used to actually measure our carbon in our trees and hedges above our ground level. And it probably came as no surprise. We found that in our hedges, we had nearly 50% more carbon within them than we do in our woodlands. And that sort of makes sense. You can walk through woodland, you can't walk through a hedge because it's more dense. But what we were able to do with the courtesy of Stuart Green of Teagasc was actually work out what we annually sequester from our trees and the hedges. We are on course to deliver carbon neutral beef and lamb by 2025. And one of the key tools we can use is stocking density. We know what we're sequestering on an annual basis in trees and hedges and soils. We can actually mitigate some of that by having less animals, or we can cause more issues by having more animals. And what I've done here is just give you an idea of our sensitivity analysis of livestock against what we sequester and what we emit. And what you can see at 2 livestock units per hectare where we are, we're currently displacing 56% of all our greenhouse gases. We could deliver carbon neutral beef and lamb tomorrow, and to do that, we would have to destock down to 1.25 livestock units per hectare, but then we would be carbon neutral then. Our plan actually is not to destock, because at the end of the day, we have a growing world population who still need livestock products. Our comment is, can we actually get greenhouse gases down, and can we accelerate carbon sequestration at the same time? And I just want to show you what we've done in our lighthouse farm around driving carbon sequestration. And it really goes back to our soils. And we have neglected our soils for years and years and years. And that was obvious when we bought Douth. We had an average pH of 5.5 for a brown earth mineral soil, which was far too low. And every 2 years now, we go back and we precision soil sample and analyze. And we look at the impact of applications of lime that have been applied using precision lime spreaders. And so we put lime on where it's needed and not put it on where it's not needed. And over 6 years, we've completely corrected the soil pH. And we've seen a marked improvement in productivity, but also in earthworm populations and more legumes coming through here. The second thing we did, and this is part of also Douth, is not just a lighthouse, it's also a living lab. We secured in partnership with Wageningen University Research, with University College Dublin, a grant to employ 5 PhD students to actually investigate the benefits, not only to livestock, but also to our environment, of growing multi-species swards, of moving away from the monoculture of ryegrass and looking at legumes, looking at herbs and the impact. And that has been an extraordinary journey. We've greatly improved our productivity. We've greatly improved our soil biology. But we've also dropped our nitrogen utilization by 65%, which is tremendous. And our thank you to our research partners there. And it's great embedding a living lab within a lighthouse. At the end of the day, we have found our journey as a member of the global network of lighthouse farms really not only enjoyable, but very informative, and actually has made us better farmers. We've learnt and shared from with each other. I mean, to have a network of 11 lighthouse farms, 6 in Europe, 5 outside Europe, we all are at the top of our game, but we're doing different things. So that sharing in itself creates great inspiration. But when you bring in great academia and great scientists, you get this catalyst for innovation and to accelerate innovative impact. Prior to COVID, and the year prior to COVID, we had over 50 groups of farming visitors, farming discussion groups with us. And that peer-to-peer learning that we do as a lighthouse farm, I believe has absolutely accelerated that positive change, that positivity in the industry, that there is a future. At the end of the day, for me as the lighthouse farmer, I have really enjoyed the experience. I've really enjoyed building these partnerships. But more than anything, I've also really enjoyed these new friendships. And right where this world is at the moment, it is great to have friends. They may be currently digitally and virtual, but when COVID passes, we will welcome everyone back. And I would welcome all the participants today to come and visit us at the Devonish lands of Douth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Like I told you, everyone, I promised 3 very inspiring and interesting people, and here you are. I think they all deserve a clap of hands. So let's open up our mics and give them a clap of hands, please, everybody. Thank you very much. So I want to inform you right away that these 3 presentations, because they were pre-recorded, in case you didn't notice, they are already available in the EIP app that you can find in the phone, in the program. You can already see them for later for the details. This presentation, for example, is full of interesting details. I'm also applying lime in the farm that we're managing from our faculty, but it's very interesting to see the whole approach, very inspiring. So Now it's time for us to go to the questions and answers. I welcome again Pandi Zdruli, our coordinating expert, to give us support in this. So Pandi will be reading through the questions that you will be writing, and you already started writing down in the chat, and distributing the questions through the three different speakers of the day. Okay, Pandi, the floor is yours.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Well, I think we had very inspiring presentations, and I'm extremely grateful for what Herman, Boss, and Yannick and John told us. It is very, very good, because these examples speak by themselves. Now, there was a question for Herman, and I wrote it down in here, regarding the rotation, how that rotation works. Do their farmers also share their land and make sure that all the process works? So, Herman.
Yes. So that was about a lab in Norway, and in fact it's about crop rotation. So think about farmers of grain. They grow the different crops, but a number of the arable farmers, they don't make use of crop rotation. But in fact it was on individual farms, but also between farms. Yeah? So in fact the starting point was to do this more between farms, especially arable and dairy farmers, to have, let's say, to exchange land, to develop a certain contract and to do that. But in Norway, in that region, they faced some reluctance about it. So some did it. So we had there a pilot, but as a result of it, farmers were also more open to do this on their own farm. So in fact, we wanted to make 2 steps forward, but 1 step was interesting too.
Okay. Yeah. So, and the other one was, how do you identify who participate in being a living lab, and are they also, temporary basis or permanent?
Yes. So let's say what we did in these labs. Yeah. Let's say we had a good preparation about the methods, how to deal with it. So let's say we had 6 labs in Europe. So each lab had a certain problem or central challenge. So we started with doing in a certain region interviews with farmers and stakeholders about this problem. So in the Netherlands, it was about the leaching of nitrate around maize production. So we interviewed farmers, we interviewed contract workers, we interviewed people of the water board, etc. And we want to know how they faced this problem and what was their background around it, and their motives, and what did they see as challenges, etc. And besides the interview of it, we also asked them if they were interested to join us in a living lab approach, to work on the problem. So after the interviews, we organized workshops, invited the interviewed people, and some of them said, okay, I'd like to join this, and others said, no, I don't have time, or I'm not interested, or whatever. But this was a way to see if they were motivated to join in it, and okay, based on that first workshop, okay, then we can make the next step to develop this living lab approach.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Well, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can go on, but it was about the temporary.
No, because yeah, and quickly on that, because I would like also to give a little bit of time to also other speakers.
Yeah, sorry. In my opinion, it's a living lab is temporary. You start with a challenge. It's not an institute or an institution or whatever. It's a temporary situation where you bring people together, have a number of steps, organize a number of steps, and come to solutions. And it can be a lab for 2 years, for 1 year, maybe for 6 years. But in fact, in my opinion, it's temporary, organized around a certain challenge.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to move to Janek. Janek, and well, there was a question: have you ever received any type of sponsorship when you started your own farm?
Yeah, so basically, we were lucky because the farm was already in the family of my husband, Alfonso. So we did not have to buy the farm. And I know that many people that want to start farming have to find the investment to buy. But for actually implementing certain practices, we did find funding because, for example, we made some ponds and water bodies on the farm to capture the water to stop erosion, and those cost a lot of money. And also, when you're doing experiments, some don't work, so you have to figure it out as you go. And for those, we did definitely get money. And also through Alvalal and Commonland, we've had the opportunity to ask for funding to do certain practices, as well as through Patagonia, who helped us plant a lot of trees and do reforestations. So yeah, there is definitely funding available, and a transition is costly also because you make a lot of mistakes in the beginning.
All right. There is an interesting topic in here, and I know that regenerative agriculture is also challenging and maybe not very well known to everybody. So I'd like you very briefly to describe what you mean by regenerative agriculture, and have you also got, let's say, some kind of inspiration also from practices similar to that in other parts of the world, and is it possible that could be replicated or could be also implemented by other farmers based on your experience?
Yeah, definitely. So regenerative agriculture is for us a set of practices to increase biodiversity, increase soil fertility, and increase water uptake through the rain in the soil, as well as increasing the whole livability of and on the farm. And yeah, I understand when people say like, "Hey, this is a new thing," like it's not proven. That's why we're also experimenting a lot. So we're not saying like, "Hey, this works, yes or yes." We always tell farmers, try it out on a small piece of land. If you feel that it works, you can try it out on a bigger piece of land. That's how we do it. But on the other hand, many of these practices are not new. They're old. But then the tractor came and kind of stopped. Yeah, people could not implement these practices with the modern machinery, and then they kind of faded away. But if you go back a little bit further, you see that many of the things that we're trying to implement now with modern technology, they already existed. So we just kind of need to find a way. How can we implement these old practices with new technology? That's for us important, because we cannot go back to doing 1,100 hectares by hand. But we can see how can we try to use this information and this knowledge of older days, and see how we can implement it in our farm with what we have.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. I'd like also to give a few more minutes also to John. And it was very nice to hear that carbon neutral beef could be produced, because we often blame a lot the livestock for carbon emissions and then the associated effect with climate change. So that is very good to hear. John, there was a question, I wrote it here. How about the microbiota changes? Did you make any analysis after the pH change in your soil?
So part of our journey is both as a lighthouse farm and a living lab. And in the living lab, one of our PhD students is focusing on changes in soils, not only on the microbiome, but actually on the speed to which soil, we are laying carbon down in the soil. One of the things we've done in the Living Lab is not only around pH, but also with our different sward diversities, is we're trying 4 totally different sward diversities. So our old heritage sward, our straight perennial ryegrass, which is the industry norm, and then a 6-way mixture and a 12-way mixture. And actually, so we're looking at microbiome changes through that, but we're looking at carbon changes through that too. Our key issue we want to do is we want to put evidence around this journey, because there's a lot of people who criticize ruminant agriculture, and the industry have not been able to at least counter that, because there's a lot of, we don't have a lot of data about the impact on the wider environment. So when we bought the farm, we specifically bought the farm to look at the landscape to which the animals sit in. And fundamental in that is actually, to date, our ruminant agriculture is measured on what we call gross emissions. In other words, emissions from the animals. We are not rewarded for those animals actually helping the landscape sequester carbon. And so we've created this carbon balance sheet, this annual balance sheet that looks at net emissions. So it looks at what we emit, it looks at what we sequester, and gives us a net position. And that transparency of that process allows us to accelerate our journey towards carbon neutral beef and lamb by 2025.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, the other thing that I noticed is that all of you are strongly collaborating with the research institutions, and that is very, very nice. I saw that there are PhD students who are working there conducting research. So it is not an isolated work that you are doing, but it's well coordinated also with the researchers. And that maybe I put it in the last minute as a remark on you. How did you establish these links with the researchers? Were they coming to ask you about this, or it was on both sides? And how the initial contacts were defined? If you wish, John, you can say that, and then also. Yeah.
Well, we've always been passionate about practical agriculture. But if you're going to make positive change, it needs to be credible. It needs to be measurable. We as practicing farmers don't have those tools. So we have to reach out to our science brethren who have the ability to bring that transparency, that credibility. So in our case, we always had close relationships with the collection, not just with Chagas and UCD, but also in the Netherlands as well. And it was just a natural fit. They saw us as pioneering farmers wanting to make positive change, and they wanted to help. And so we reached out to each other. So it was a mutual journey instigated by both of us simultaneously.
Okay, all right. Well, the last question actually is still for John. How do you measure the changes in soil carbon under different types of swards? Is there any easy tool to do this?
So, sadly, at the moment, there isn't an easy tool. I mean, physically, what we did at the start, we did our baselines. So we took soil carbon measurements down to 30 centimeters as described by the protocol in IPCC. And we did it at the start, and we will do it at the end. But we also are, on an annual basis, measuring change in soil biology. I myself, as a practicing farmer, I'm learning too. I'm watching PhD students actually pour liquid mustard onto a square meter quadrant, and watching biology come up out of the surface to count it is quite extraordinary. And I have to say, I personally was blown away about how we have accelerated the improvement of soil biology, particularly with the use of multi-species swards. It has been a real eye-opener for us. And it's one of the things that we show when people come to visit us, is just within our short journey, how much our soil has improved. And there are spent soils out there. This journey we've been on has given us great confidence that we can rejuvenate spent soils.
Excellent, thank you very much. I think we are right in time for
exactly
the time allocated to this, so I pass it on to you, Andres.
Thank you very much, Pandi, for the accurate time management. Thank you very much, John, Yannick, and Herman. I know that everybody would like to talk with you for hours on your studies, your experiences, and your life experiences and projects. I'm sure you'll have the opportunity to talk with the participants during the breakout sessions, so during today in the morning and the afternoon. So after the break that we're going to have now for 15 minutes, we're coming back straight away at 10:45. The break stops and we go straight away to breakout groups. Our idea is going to be discussing in detail your opinions about the living labs and lighthouses. So thank you again very much for your contributions, your inspiration. The presentations are online. I hope you can all have great talks in between, and see you after the break at 10:45. So thank you all for being sharp. If you can arrive 1 or 2 minutes before, it would be great. Thank you, and see you soon.
Bye.
Goodbye, Yannick, John, and Herman. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being on time. I think when we closed for the break, there were some participants that went out and will be coming back. So I'm going to do a short energizer for us to wait 30 seconds. Is that okay? So the energizer is going to be about climate change. So we're going to be talking about living labs and lighthouses, but it seems that everything is stable, and the only thing is what we have to do about regenerating our soils to meet the objectives of the mission. But the truth is that we are under climate change and it's increasing. In the last 30 years, since the Rio Declaration for Sustainable Development, we have sent as much emissions as all the 200 years before. So we're not doing a great job, even though Europe is on the lead and there is one of the missions to do so. So we're going to make a small energizer using the rain, okay? So I'm going to first show you how we're going to do. We're going to, everybody has to turn on their microphones and video. And we're going, first I do it, then you can do it with me, okay? So we're going to try to mimic the sound of a rain event coming in. When we're doing it presentially, it's much better because we can use the feet as well and the storm with jumping, but we cannot do this now. So we're going to do partially. Let's see how it works. So we start by doing like this. It's the small rain coming in, the small drops. Then we go like this. Put it close to your microphone. So this is the small rain coming in. Then the small, heavier rain, we do like this. Close to your microphone. And then the big rain, it goes like. And then we go back to the medium rain. Small rain. Into the drops. Okay, so now let's do it without me speaking. Everybody with their microphone on. I see that some of you still have the microphone off. So, are you ready? Let's go. The rain is coming. Thank you. It's much better when it's presential in live. Like this, it doesn't work so well. But thank you very much for trying. And I hope it was good enough to energize the muscles a little bit. And hope for the rain. If we have another wish here in the Mediterranean, we would definitely call for rain. So thank you all for being here. It's time for us to start the program. We're going back to our interactive session mode. So maybe Ina can put our on the slide that shows what's going to happen. So we are at 10:15 exactly sharp. This is how we work in EIP with your cooperation together. So we're going to use the method of 136. So as you've seen, we're using different methods of participation throughout the different event so that you experiment, so that you can use it in your own sessions, and also that we can have a nice time. So 136 means that we're going to first discuss this individually, meaning that it's not really a discussion. It's we're asking you for your opinion. We're going to use the Padlet, which is now already, the link is already on the chat. So in this Padlet, you're going to see several questions. You can, like we did yesterday, clicking on the plus button, you can answer the questions, give your opinion, and you can also comment and like. There's going to be, the first column on the left, there's going to be one question, which is a little bit like a poll. So you can all vote yes or no if you agree. Are you interested in becoming a living lab or a lighthouse? You see on the left, you have yes, and you can do a like or not like. So it's like a vote or no. And you can actually add more answers to the poll if you want. So you have the second question, what would you need to become one? You have the third question, what would you get from being one? And the fourth, what would you do as a living lab and lighthouse? And of course, space for further comments. So this is what we're going to discuss. So now it's 10:50. First, we're going to give you around 7 minutes, 10 minutes, for 5 minutes for this. Let's see how you do your work. If you're very fast, we stop sooner. And then we go to groups of 3 participants, random. You don't have to take any notes. What we're going to do is basically talk and share your opinion about what you just discussed, how you see this. And then in groups of 6, after doing the groups of 3, we come back to plenary and we go to a group of 6. There, what's going to happen is that we're going to give you a link for a Google document where you should basically write the conclusions of your ideas as a group. Please remember that what you say in the group of 3 or in the group of 6 will not be registered, written down, or recorded unless you write it down on the notes. So the reason why you are here is to have your voice heard, of course, also to be informed. So we give to you now the responsibility. There is no facilitator making sure that there is reporting on this session. It's all on you. So I hope this is clear. So the first part of this session is what if you were a living lab or lighthouse? The second part of this session, part 3B, let's call it like that, it's how can living labs and lighthouses be most effective? Okay, and then we'll have 30 minutes for that. So the first part, we have 10 minutes plus 10 minutes plus 10 minutes for the group of 6, group of 3 and individual. And in the second part, we do the same thing, 10 minutes each. And in the end, we're going to hear some voices of what happened in the breakout groups. So this is our suggestion for the morning. I hope you like it. I hope you can contribute actively through this way and that you find a place for all your ideas, your inputs. If not, use the further comments on the Padlet. For any questions, don't hesitate to ask us on the chat. Now, the first individual time on Padlet, we're going to be on plenary, muted, with around 5 to 7, 8, maximum 10 minutes for you to answer and comment on each other using the Padlet. Okay? So here we are. Let's get ready. Everybody has a computer, so you already have the link. Follow it and have fun for the next 10 minutes. Thank you. to plenary. We are all still in plenary, but now it's time for us to continue. So I hope you were able. We looked at the Padlet and it's quite filled in. I can actually still hear some keyboard working, so it means that you're motivated. So now we're going to give you 10 minutes to talk in groups of 3, reflect further on this, share your ideas informally. Then we come back to plenary and we go into groups of 6. So have a nice time. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice conversation and relevant one. We have reflected a little bit on our experience, and for this next session, we're going to make a very small change. We're going to bring together the breakout session of 3 participants to the 6 participants and give you more time to the 6 participants, okay? So this is going to be a test of, this is what we call continuous evaluation and adapting. So now it's time for us to go again to the individual time of reflection on Padlet. So you already have the link on the chat now for the session 3B. So Ina, can you show us the slide for this session 3B? Otherwise, we can share the link and say, basically, we're going to have 10 minutes. And what we're going to discuss now for the next few minutes is how can living labs and lighthouses be most effective. So if you follow the link, you see that the same structure is there. You have 5 questions. One of them is, are living labs and lighthouses useful the way they are designed? The second question is, how should living labs do? What should living labs do, sorry. The third question is, what should lighthouses do? The fourth question is, how can living labs be most effective? And the fifth question is, how can lighthouses be most effective? Okay, so the first one is again like a poll. So you can click the plus, yes or no, and comment. And that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them here on the chat. We have now 10 minutes of silence. Please mute your microphones and have a great reflection time. Thank you very much for your contribution. We are now in plenary. Everybody is back. So thank you all.
No.
Thank you, everybody, for being back. I hope you had a great conversation and you were able to do some useful reporting and nice reporting of what you wrote. As we've promised before, this will all be integrated in the final report that will also be made available online together with all the presentations. We, the facilitators, we stayed out for this time, most of us, and we also had a nice conversation. So now it's time for us to get ready for lunch. We have 10 minutes, so we're going to take a little bit of, we're going to take 5 minutes more from the lunch break. I hope you don't mind. Since we have 2 hours, we thought it wouldn't be a big problem. So what basically I would like to ask you now is to have a very open moment in which any of you could express a little bit what happened in this workshop. Basically, what were the main insights, the most interesting idea that you found that is more relevant to you for the future of yourself or for the future of living labs and lighthouses in Europe. Remember the exercise that we did yesterday when we counted to 10. We couldn't have 2 people talking at the same time. So remember that exercise, because now it's time to put it into practice, okay? So you have 10 minutes and I invite the first person to speak. So the question is, what was interesting about your discussion? Please share us some thoughts. Feel free.
If I can break the ice.
Please.
So one thing impressed me most in the speech of Alfred, that was he was trying to demonstrate the difference in price between the local produced vegetables and the big markets one. This is very relevant, and it reminds me the difference in between normal mobile phone cost and the Fire Phone cost. I don't know if you are aware of Fire Phone. Fire Phone is a mobile phone made with the fair trade approach, and the difference is 3 times. So if you compare the cost of your mobile phone with the equivalent phone made with a fair approach, the costs are 3 times. And the same is true for the agricultural activity. And Alfred Grand is trying to let people understand that if they pay so little for the food that they buy, someone in the world is suffering from hunger, some soil has been destroyed, some water has been polluted. So this is something that really makes the difference.
Thank you very much, Eduardo, for sharing your thoughts and your emotions and your insights and what you liked. Anybody else?
For me, the breakout sessions were very inspiring, as you really managed to bring together all kinds of what we talk about, interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary, but these breakout sessions, they really were. We had soil scientists, farmers, students, network people. I found it really, really great. And you really see the value of it, because bringing together all these different perceptions and experiences really leads to a better product. So yeah, I'm feeling very inspired. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Howard. We want to make participation work and show everyone that it doesn't have to be very boring and very time consuming and very expensive to make participation. We can make it work. So let's continue. Thank you.
One point that we make is the question of time. And this was also, how can the farmer manage such living labs or lighthouses? Because he also can't make his living out of this. Otherwise, it is no longer the real concept behind. So this is, I think it's quite crucial.
Thank you very much. Very important question. Any more ideas?
Yes.
Please.
Yes, for me it was very relevant, the question of the multiplier role of the lighthouses. How many other questions does it raise, and how problematic it can be, though it is really a key issue in the concept.
The multiplier role of the lighthouses, can you explain better?
How much they can behave as, they can act as multiplicators, because I guess that's what the design is meant for, that the best practices developed by the living labs, let's say, they should spread these good practices. And I think that this is a very quick question, but a very difficult task.
Okay, thank you very much. Very relevant. Any more?
Yes, I was fortunate. We were in the group with Alfred, and he kind of clarified a few things for me by the discussion, again relating maybe to the time aspect and farmers' involvement, where he explained that it's very important when engaging farmers in this to let them be aware that their role will be very much involved still on the farming side, that, you know, the communication side and the research things will be looked after by a good sort of supporting network. So, you know, so just for them to be aware that they're not going to be caught up in a lot of stuff that's peripheral to what they want to do. And then the other aspect that he also highlighted was being involved with the researchers at the co-creation stage and making sure that their activities, in some cases at least, will be covered by the research project budget, so that they wouldn't be expected to kind of participate at the last step, where suddenly they have to kind of offer their services and there's no real facility for them to get reimbursed. So I think that's another, an important point to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you very much, Donald. Very relevant as well. Any more comments, ideas, insights?
Yeah, I would like just to add that I was very impressed from the Yannick from Spain and her husband farm. It was something very spectacular, combining different kinds of crops, vegetables, forestry, cereal crops, also educating students, also involving in regeneration and regenerative agriculture. Very impressive, a very good example for how should living labs and lighthouses should be.
Okay, thank you very much, Natalia. It's indeed inspiring, and I take the opportunity to inform you that we are going to show during the break a movie of around 6 minutes from Junqueira Farm. So at 13:40 we start projecting some short movies. So if you come before we start at 2, but from 13:40 we are here again to show some of these movies, and we'll continue to get inspired with each other. So, okay, thank you very much, everyone. It's now 12:06. It's the time that we wanted to go for lunch. I hope you have a great lunch. I'm going to do the same for myself, try to have a great lunch. Be back at 13:40 for these nice short movies. And then at 4, we come back with the program, which is discussing the supportive environment. I hope you a great time, a great break. See you soon.